Hey there, guys. How you doing? And welcome to my much anticipated eye candy review. Yeah, the first season just wrapped up last Monday. I'm gonna go over each episode, give a short little description on what the episode's about, give a grade for that episode. After that, I'm gonna compare it to the book and kind of see where how it stacks up. Now, keep in mind, I have not read the book. Everything I gathered on the book came from my friend Zoe, aka at the Justice Cape on Twitter. You guys should definitely give her a follow if you have a Twitter. Without further ado, let's get into segment one, the episodes. Let's get into the episode Kate Through You. This is the pilot episode, and right off the bat, this episode starts with Lindy finding her sister hanging out with some douchebags that she doesn't like. They go to somewhere to get something to eat, and Sarah gets kidnapped. Yeah, just out of nowhere. Now, the biggest problem I had with this scene was there was a car sitting in front of Lindy when this is going on, and the guy didn't come out of the car. He just sat there and watched. I guess food is more important than a human's safety and well-being. What an asshole. After that, it shoots 3 years later to where we see Lindy talking to somebody, and we discovered that she has her own website dedicated to finding lost people. And I like that. I like that aspect of the show, that this girl becomes a major hacker to find her sister. It shows a lot of determination, a lot of, ferociousness, and I just love that aspect about the character Lindy. Some more bullshit goes on, some things in between. She goes on some dates with some guys that her friend Sophia set her up with on an app similar to the one called Tinder, but this one is called Flirtual. Yeah. So anyway, she goes on some dates with some guys, and then she starts getting these weird text messages from a weirdo who's stalking her. That's some pretty creepy shit. Then she goes to the cops about this. We learn a little something about her and a cop named Ben. Now, don't get used to seeing Ben around, because, spoiler alert, he dies at the end of the episode. I'm sorry, I just shat on your dreams. Anyway, this pilot episode started off really intense, really dark. It just set the whole tone, and I gotta credit it for that. But here's my problem with this episode: the performances. Now, guys, please, I love Victoria Justice. You guys know I'm a huge fan of her, but I'm not gonna deny it. I wasn't totally bought into her performance in this episode. Let me just say it right now. And even Kirstie Clemons with Sophia was kind of eh. John Garrett Stoker as Connor, he was okay. I'm not a big fan of the character Connor. I think he's annoying. He's just kind of eh. The performances were the problem I had in this first episode. I just didn't really buy into them at all. That's not to say they were bad. I just felt like at times they were trying to force all the emotion. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning, this asshole in front of Lindy that didn't help her save her sister. Now, unless this guy was involved in the kidnapping, that's the only thing that I could possibly, find. Either that or the writers just completely forgot about him. What the fuck, MTV? All that said, I still really enjoyed this pilot episode. It got me hooked, and it did set the tone for the rest of the series. Overall, I'm going to give this episode a C-. I definitely think it could have been better. It could have started off better. The performances were a little off, but it set the tone. It got you hooked, and it got you prepared for everything and anything. I can't talk, guys. I forgot how to speak English. But anyway, it really got you going. It got you hooked. As I said, the performances were a little off, but that usually happens in a first episode because the actors still need to get comfortable with their characters, and it just takes a little time. Don't worry, guys. The performances improved a lot as time went on. The second episode is called BRB, which is following the events of the first episode. We see more of Lindy trying to find the Flirtual killer. A lot of interesting stuff happens here. For one thing, let me get this out of the way first. The performances in this episode were a lot better than the first episode. You could tell all the actors were definitely getting more comfortable with their characters. And I gotta say, I really started to buy into it at this point. The big thing that happens, Lindy goes on a date with some guy named Reese in a junkyard. And Yeah, junkyard. But anyway, she goes on a date with this guy Reese, and you kind of get the idea that maybe this is the guy we're all looking for. This is the Flortual Killer. He is a bit of a weirdo. He says and does weird things. It seems like at some point in the episode, he tries to sexually harass Lindy. This guy is a bastard. Now, the biggest thing I remember from this episode is Lindy getting into a car that was driven by Tommy, and it actually gets hacked. Yeah, a car being hacked. With technology as big as it is today, I'm pretty sure this could actually happen. And that's a scary thought. That in itself is a scary thought. Tommy's in the back of the trunk. Lindy's trying to hack the car. It's backing up, about to hit a pole, essentially going to kill Tommy, possibly even kill Lindy. And in the driver's seat is this dummy covered in pictures of Lindy. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. And as I said, if this could actually happen, I just became afraid to drive a car. Technology, man. It's a dangerous thing. This episode also rules out the possibility that Reese is the killer. Because at the end of the episode, we see a video of him tied to a chair, screaming at some guy, asking him what he wants. Yeah, seriously, he's sitting there going, "What do you want? What do you want? Ah, 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 not the bees! Not the bees! Ah, they're in my eyes! Ah!" Okay, he doesn't scream that "not the bees" part. That was literally just pulled out of a scene from The Wicker Man. I don't know why Nicolas Cage is finding himself into this review, because he doesn't show up in the show at all. That would be awesome, though. Alright, so essentially BRB was definitely an upgrade to K3U. I thought the performances were much better in this episode. It had some interesting plots. However, there were a few things that were just kind of off, namely the character Reese and his motives. And it made us more suspicious as to who the Flortual Killer was. I'm going to give this episode a B. Definitely an upgrade compared to the first episode. And an episode that, if you didn't see K3U, you see this one, it's a better episode. Just take my word for it. Okay, the next episode is HBTU. You start to notice a pattern here? Yeah, every episode is named kind of like text messages or shortened words of text messages. Okay, HBTU is an episode that, sticks to the same thing as the first two. Essentially, Lindy is still trying to find a Flortual Killer. Here's the big twist. It's her birthday. Yeah, so Sophia throws a big house party, and actually, Victoria Justice's little sister, Madison Reed, actually was an extra in this episode. Some things happen. Jake starts to kind of develop a crush on Lindy here. The biggest thing I remember from this episode is towards the end, Lindy has a little too much to drink. Actually, she ends up getting drugged, passes out, and someone with gloves on drags her out of her apartment. Now, the biggest problem I have here is nobody saw this guy doing this. So, what? Jake ends up being arrested by Tommy. Lindy wakes up all nauseous and dizzy. We've all had hangovers, but this wasn't a hangover. No, this was the effect of drugs. Yeah, don't do drugs, kids. She wakes up, sees Reese tied to a chair, screaming and screaming. We see a guy slit his throat and run. Now, essentially, we think this is the Flortual Killer, but I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's not. It's somebody else. Yeah, there's two killers on the loose now. Or at least as of right now, that's what we think. All in all, HBTU isn't an episode that does anything new. It doesn't do anything, great. It doesn't really help or hurt the series. It was a good way to end off, the whole Flortual Killer thing temporarily. Kind of take a break from it for a bit. It ended on a good note. I'm going to give it a C. I thought it could have been better. The performances were definitely not the problem. As I said, from this point on, the performances were really good, really solid. I just didn't think it's an episode I barely remember except for the party scene. And just for that, I got to give it what I just gave it. The next episode is YOLO. Remember that saying? Please do not remind me. I couldn't stand it then, and I can't stand it now. Before I get into this episode, guys, let me just say it right now. This was the worst episode, in my opinion. Here's the thing about YOLO. I didn't like the ultimate climax in this episode. What was the climax? I will get to that soon. But first, let me explain what's going on in this episode. Essentially, you have this kid who was on a party bus with his friends. He wakes up in like a creek, or he wakes up in a parking lot, all covered in like shit and just like scars and whatnot. Now, the first initial idea is that there was a big murder on a party bus. Now, we see some video clips along the way of what was going on in this party bus, and there was actually some really scary moments. Like, there was this guy in a mask, this really weird, obnoxious screaming noise, and just all kinds of scary things. But the way the episode ended was my biggest problem, and you guys want to know how this whole thing came about. There was a death on the bus. No one died except for one girl, and it was an accident. Yeah, her and this guy were trying to play a prank on the rest of their friends. So they got this lady to act like a psychic and make all these weird noises and this freaky stuff. Things that you'd probably saw in the movie The Exorcist, if you've ever seen The Exorcist. This girl dies because she tripped on a boat and fell to her death. And that's the big payoff here. Now, why do I have such a problem with this? The tagline for this episode was, "It's party time for a new killer." Yeah, I could see why they did that. They wanted us to believe that there was another killer, but there really wasn't. You know, they could have just left it at "it's party time." That would have been a little more creepy, a little more scary, and I probably would have been a little more forgiving about the ultimate climax. Now, it's not a terrible episode, but in my opinion, it's the worst, and for that reason, I'm going to give it a D+. Sorry, guys, I really didn't like this episode. It's kind of forgettable, and I just didn't like the way the show ended up. But I won't be mad if you disagree with me. Episode 5 is called IRL, and let me just say this right now. I called YOLO one of the worst episodes. IRL is one of the better ones. I mean, IRL, this episode is nuts. Essentially, Sophia's having a party at her bar. It gets hacked by some guy named Bubonic, which, if you don't know, is a reference to the Black Plague back in the medieval times. Now, this guy tells everyone if they want to win $1 million, they need to follow each instruction that comes up on the screen, comes up on this app that they're all, they all downloaded or whatever. No matter how screwed up it is, they got to do it if they want to win $1 million. And this gets really fucked up. You have people cutting fingers off of their boyfriends and girlfriends. You have people like chopping body parts off, chopping tongues out, stealing things, just doing all kinds of crazy shit for money. I feel like this episode really speaks to human nature, because there are people out there that would do some crazy shit just to win some money. Don't tell me there isn't, because there is. Am I one of them? I don't think I'd cut someone's finger off for $1 million. Let's just put it that way. IRL, the whole thing came down to a big bomb threat, though. It was all just a scam to essentially blow the bar up. And I really loved the way this episode was handled. It wasn't perfect. A few minor things. I like to think someone eventually would have said, "Hey, this is screwed up. I'm not doing this." But everybody just seemed to want to do these nasty things to each other for money. And I can understand that, again. But I just feel like someone, at least one person, besides our main characters, would have been like, "This is stupid. Forget this. How do we know this is even true? Who does this?" But in all honesty, humans are sheep. Well, they can be when it comes to money. People will do anything for money. Overall, IRL, really good episode. If you're only going to watch a few episodes of Eye Candy, this definitely needs to be the one. I'm going to give this one an A. It was definitely a solid episode. Great performances. Really spoke about human nature. And overall, just a damn good episode. Next up, we're going to talk about the episode ICU, which is about Lindy and Tommy investigating some incident at a hospital. Now, if you're like me, you don't like hospitals very much. There's just something kind of off about them. Not that I think they're bad. I wouldn't want to be in one. Let's just put it that way. Now, this episode centers around some kind of hacker in a hospital. Yeah, another hacker. because the show didn't have enough of that already. Tommy and Lindy have to investigate what's going on. You actually see Tommy's ex-girlfriend in this episode, too, and, wow, she's a hottie. And there's even a part in this episode towards the end where she's wearing an engagement ring, but it's actually her grandmother's, and she tells Tommy she wears it to avoid having patients hit on her. You know what? If I were a patient and I didn't see that ring, I'd probably hit on her too. Not a doubt in my mind. Lindy ends up becoming a patient in this hospital. She kind of fakes her own, she fakes a really bad medical condition. She ends up fainting. I forgot what George told her to say she had. She ends up talking to this one girl, this little British girl, and you don't suspect it at the time, but this girl is the hacker. This is the girl causing all the trouble at the hospital. Why is she doing this? To be honest, guys, I don't even remember why. So I'm not going to hold that against the episode because I'm too stupid to remember why she's doing it. But she's not alone. She's got her, I believe her fiance, maybe her boyfriend. I forgot. It's this other guy who is helping her out with this whole thing. And overall, I loved how this episode balanced comedy with drama. There is a lot of comedic moments in this. There's actually a moment where Lindy's she's sitting on a hospital bed with the thing on. They gotta inject some spinal fluid out of her. Not fun. I wouldn't want that either. And Tommy shows up and he's like, "Hey, sweetheart, you didn't tell me you were sick." And she's like, "Hey, honey, essentially they're acting like they were engaged, and and the doctor the doctor tells Tommy like, "Hey, maybe you're her fiance. Come over here and grab a hold of her. It'll calm her down a lot more." Let me tell you, if someone told me to hold Victoria Justice like that, I wouldn't think twice about it. Wait, so he goes to hold her. She whispers in his ear, like, "I am going to kill you." And then he tries talking the doctor out of it. And then the doctor says something about injecting, fluid from both of them. So Tommy's ex-girlfriend has to come save the day, essentially. There was also a moment where they had to perform an autopsy on the dead girl, the blonde-haired chick, I believe. Ugh. To be honest, guys, I don't think I could do that. An autopsy. I'm pretty sure we all know what an autopsy is. No. I would never. I couldn't do it. I couldn't chop open a dead body and look inside to see how he or she died. You couldn't pay me enough to do it. Okay, you probably could, but I'm not going to say what price. Alright, so anyway, ICU. The episode was really good. It was just as good as the last episode. This is actually the episode that got the most views of the whole season, so that's really cool. And I'm going to give this episode an A. It balanced out comedy with drama. It did it really well. And overall, I just loved it. I thought it was funny. It was dramatic. It was everything you want in a TV show. The next episode is titled SOS, which stands for Save Our Ship. Yeah, anyway, this episode is kind of weird. Apparently something happens in an apartment between a couple. He seeks out Lindy and asks her to help him find out what's going on. She agrees to it, and, her and Tommy, they get an apartment together. Tommy ends up getting drugged. Lindy gets into a fight with this big burly guy with a hood over his face that we don't know yet. Honestly, we all assumed it was the floor tool killer. It wasn't. It was actually a guy working with the floor tool killer. Here's my theory. This is the guy that killed Reese. That's just my theory. I really don't know. Now, he knocks Lindy out, ties her up, and then almost brands her. Yeah, like a cow. He lights this little X on fire, which is the Roman numeral for 10, which is what the floor tool killer requested because Lindy is his perfect 10. I thought it was just an X. It was his way of telling Lindy, "Hey, I'm a fan of the X-Men." I'm just kidding. But, but Tommy ends up beating this guy's ass, and we get a look at his face, and I swear to God, he looks like the love child of Sheamus from WWE and Abraham from The Walking Dead. Yeah. No joke, no joke. Overall, though, SOS had a few minor problems. I just couldn't buy into the whole story, and I thought the whole branding thing was kind of. I found that to be a little funny, and I probably shouldn't have. Of course, I like dark humor. That's why I love Breaking Bad and why I like Better Call Saul. Still a good episode. Definitely recommend checking this one out. I'm gonna give SOS a B+. Alright, we're going to move on to episode 8, which is AMA. This is essentially an episode completely dedicated to character development. You get to see a little bit more of Ben, of Tommy before, the events going on today. And this episode was just, it's one of those episodes where you can just tell the writers kind of sat down, they're like, okay, we need an episode that completely focuses on character development. Any ideas? And I like those kind of episodes. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But essentially, it was a filler episode, so they can pump out up to 10 episodes in a season. However, this episode, we do learn a lot of things about Ben and Tommy. And let me tell you, for me personally, I really didn't like Tommy after this episode. I really didn't. I thought he was he was a liar. He definitely wasn't being honest with Lindy. And I can understand Lindy's frustration with him. That's something the episode really did good. However, as I said, you could just tell it was kind of a filler episode. Kind of like every TV show does this. Even Transformers Prime, which in my opinion is the best Transformers show in existence, best Transformers TV show, next to Beast Wars, Beast Wars, and the original 80s version of Transformers. But there was an episode of Transformers Prime where it was just dedicated to flashbacks and essentially just build up, Yeah, overall, AMA was a good episode. It really gave us more of an insight on what Tommy and Ben were like before all this happened, before Ben died. All in all, decent episode. Definitely check it out if you want to know more about Ben, especially if you're one of those people that was just beyond pissed when Ben died in the first episode. I'm going to give AMA a B. A solid B. Yeah. Alright, next episode we're going to talk about is FYEO. This is the 9th episode. This was the second to last episode of the first season. And boy, oh boy, did they go all out. This is the episode we find out who the Florchel Killer is. Now, I'm going to tell you right now who the Florchel Killer is, if you don't know by now. So, you have been warned. The Florchel Killer is Jake. We find this out at the end of the episode, but until then, everything else that happens is basically just Lindy and Jake looking for wherever Sarah may be buried, or wherever Sarah is. They do get a lead on it. Essentially, Sarah was taken by someone and then fed, locked up in a cage, became addicted to painkillers, and it just all this disturbing shit going on. Now, it was at this time we all made the assumption that Sarah was dead. Lindy did not want to accept that, and I can totally understand that. Her and Jake dig up some files. They find a missing file called, I think, 3034. They find this old guy at a bingo place that used to work on this island. Now, yeah, little creepy. I would hate to have done that for a living, burying people in boxes, not even legitimate graves, just boxes. So they go to this island called Hart Island, and they don't make it to the island until the next episode. But at the end of the episode, we find out that Jake is the killer. How? He attacks the head of the police department, cyber crimes unit, and she sees his face. Tommy and his partner ask, who attacked her? She says Jake. So there we go. You put 2 and 2 together. Jake is the Florchel Killer. I'm going to give FYEO a B+. Some things I didn't like about it. It just, there was a lot going on. It became a bit hard to follow at some points. And it just, I don't know. But the best thing about this episode was the way they built up the big reveal to who the killer is. And I got to say, they did it really well. because I should say I wasn't 100% surprised, but my jaw did drop when I found out who it was. I will say that. Alright, guys, this is it. This is the last episode of Season 1. It is titled A4U. Hey, I have an ass for you. Oh. I'm kidding. I don't know what it means. Okay, so A4U is the season finale, and everything about this episode was just, it had a lot to live up to. This is the big finale. And let me tell you, they went off with a bang. This season finale was so, just absolutely fucking phenomenal. Everything was built up. It's creepy. It's really scary. There's a lot of scary moments to it. Like when we find out when Jake's the Flortual Killer, just the way he looks at Lindy and says, "Hello, eye candy." It's just a little off. It didn't sit well with me. You know when you get freaked out and you got them butterflies in your stomach, you're a little nervous? Yeah, that happened to me. I was pretty freaked out when this happened. They dig up that grave they were looking at, and there's a tablet in the little coffin, casket, wooden. It's a box. It's a wooden box. It's not a coffin. It's not a casket, whatever you want to call it. It's just a wooden box. Now, Jake says that this is the proof that Lindy's looking for. The thing that her sister, this is going to explain everything. Lindy grabs it, but she ends up hitting him with a shovel on his legs, trying to take him out. My biggest question, why didn't she hit him on the head? Long story short, Lindy wakes up in this old abandoned insane asylum, which is just fucking creepy. And yeah, a lot of creepy things happen in this episode. Jake and Lindy do get off the island. Tommy goes and finds them, but Sophia ends up getting stabbed, and she's like bleeding out. She could die. Lindy told Tommy to go save Sophia, that she loves Jake. Pretty fucked up. You got Lindy and Jake leaving, going to leave this island, or they're going to leave for somewhere. Lindy looks up, sees George. George hacks Flortual, and then it appears on everybody's phone, says the Flortual Killer is right in front of you, and it shows Jake's face. Now, he pulls out a gun and goes to shoot some people, but then Lindy reveals that she unloaded the bullets. And it was just a badass moment. It was an awesome way to end the Flortual Killer. Tommy arrests him. They start questioning him. And he says, maybe there's somebody out there that's a little more sadistic than me. That's creepy. That's really creepy, the idea that there's somebody else out there. You also find out what happened to Sarah. Now, a lot of people didn't understand this whole thing. Let me break it down to the best of my ability. Okay, we see a video of Sarah getting out of the van that abducted her, and then the boyfriend that Lindy didn't like gets out of another car. They start kissing each other, and then Sarah says, at least now Lindy will be safe. Safe from what? We don't know. I have a couple of theories. A lot of people say it's their father. Maybe. I would like to know more about that if that's the case. If it does have to do with their dad, I would definitely like to hear that. Here are my two theories. One, Lindy didn't like them guys very much. You know the saying, what you don't know won't hurt you? Well, Sarah wanted to be with these guys so much she faked her own abduction. As far as she knows, Lindy has no idea that she faked it. Essentially, what Lindy doesn't know won't hurt her. The second theory I have is that these guys wanted Sarah so much that they were going to hurt Lindy. They were going to kill her. They were going to do something. I don't really know, but Sarah didn't want that because it's her sister. I don't know why she would. So she proposed the plan to stage her abduction. Now the lead into season 2 is going to be trying to find Sarah. At least that's what I hope. And then Tommy's going to try and find Lindy. So we basically have another game of cat and mouse, only this time there isn't a killer involved. Maybe, maybe not. This episode was intense. It ended perfectly. As for problems, just a few minor things. I thought when Lindy hit Jake with the shovel, she should have went for his head. I think that would have did some more damage. But if they did that, then all that other shit wouldn't have happened. Let me just give props to Ryan Cooper. His performance in this show, God, he was creepy. He was scary. He just really stole the show here. He was so good in this. I hope we see him in movies and other TV shows and whatever. And same for Victoria Justice. Of course, I'm not really worried about her as much. She's got other things coming out like Naomi and Eli's No Kiss List, The Outskirts, and potentially a second season of Eye Candy. Yeah, I would like to see Ryan Cooper in more stuff. That guy was just great in this episode. I'm gonna give props to the whole cast. They were all great up at this point. I'm gonna give A4U an A. Probably the best episode of the season. You guys should definitely check it out. This whole series, just really good. Eye Candy is a show. It had its ups, it had its downs. It is overall, it's an enjoyable show. Even for an MTV show, it's awesome. Okay, guys, we're going to end this review by comparing it to the book. I'm going to try to be really fast about this because this video is going on a lot longer than I initially wanted it to. Let's get into this. Okay, in the book, Lindy's a blonde. She's very arrogant and very aware of how good looking she is. Again, this is what I'm getting from my friend Zoe at the Justice, aka at the Justice Cape on Twitter. I haven't read the book, so there you go. In the book, Lindy's not a hacker. In the show, she is. Also, Lindy's a brunette, and she's very confident, determined to find her sister. She's not arrogant, not like, oh, I'm so pretty, everyone loved me. She's not all full of herself. Now, in the book, Ben is already dead. But in the TV show, he's alive at the beginning, but dies at the end of the first episode. In the book, Tommy barely shows up. In the show, he's a main character. In the book, there is no Sophia. There is a roommate, but her name's Anna Marie. And she is essentially the Florchal killer, though there is no actual killer. I'll get to that in a second. Now, in the book, you have a character named Shelley, who's essentially the Jake character. Only he's not actually a killer, he just imagines killing people. Yeah, that's fucked up. And apparently he carves out wooden limbs and hangs them on his apartment ceiling. I'd be pretty freaked out to go to that guy's apartment. I could just imagine that guy sitting there doing all this. Like, first, I took his arm off, and then I ripped his other arm off, and then I'm going to stick them on my wall because they're my trophies. Okay, let's calm down. That was way over exaggerated, way over the top. Okay. On the TV show, Lindy's fully aware that there's a killer on the loose, whereas in the book, she doesn't know, and there really is no killer. There's just a guy who thinks he's a killer, as I just explained. Now, I guess the way she finds this out is when she goes to his apartment and sees all those limbs I was just talking about dangling from the ceiling. Only they're made out of wood. We're not going to get back into that. There's no George, Sarah. They're not in the book. None of that happens. And yeah, in the book it's revealed that Anna Marie is the Florchal killer, only not Florchal killer. She just kind of stalks Lindy and makes weird threats and whatever. Why? Because she thinks Lindy is trying to steal her boyfriend, who apparently tries sexually harassing her. Yeah, that's a lot of fucked up things going on in this book. Now, from what I've heard, the TV show is a lot more gory and a lot more disturbing, has a lot more creepy-looking imagery. And after seeing every episode, I can tell you there is a lot of disturbing images to it. Just watch the trailer, and you'll see what I mean. As you can tell, the book and the TV show are very different, and the book is actually written by R.L. Stine, who you might know best for the Goosebumps books, which I have a lot of those in my drawer over there. Yeah, I was a big fan of R.L. Stine as a kid. Okay, that about wraps it up, guys. My first deck profile video, I have all of them recorded. I just need to edit them. You guys will see that on my channel. My Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile videos are coming. Don't worry, I just have to edit them. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel for anything and everything. Until next time, guys, this is Cujo06241.
This guy seems to think I'm really creepy. Well, maybe I should show him just how creepy I am.
What the hell was that? Oh, no. No, you stay away from me. No, 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 no!